So let's have a little chat, shall we? Let's have a little occult chat. This is your host, The Occult View. You know, in the wake of Brother Panic's transition, it just got me to thinking about death in general because everyone's talking about, Brother Panic's death. And, you have people, who are making all of these videos now talking about his death and, what he didn't do right and all that. And that's their prerogative. But is anyone talking about the science of death and what does death really mean for them as an individual? Is anyone talking about that? That's my question. Everyone is talking about gossip and sensationalism and all of those things, but is anyone talking about death and the science of death and how death is really a powerful tool that has been used to control so many of us? Because allegedly, I'm saying allegedly, because death is allegedly so unknown, naturally, most people are afraid of death. Well, one thing about it, Brother Panic wasn't afraid to die. I don't think he was afraid of death. And I'm not taking up for him per se. I'm not doing any of that, but I'm just pointing it out from the things he has said. You feel what I'm saying? But everybody's talking about the transition and everybody's talking about the death, but nobody is really talking about, and it's really not making anyone think about the science of death or even the concept of death and what it really means. See, I want to take Panic out of the equation because this is not about him. Again, this is more about your own spiritual growth and where this can take you. And what does this mean for you? You feel what I'm saying? Because again, death is supposed to be allegedly unknown, but is it really unknown? Is death really unknown? Or is it just misunderstood? People oftentimes say that no one has died and come back to really tell us what death is like. But that's not true. That's not true. There are so many fallacies in that. And like I said, things will be right in front of our face, just like in the Wizard of Oz. Glinda told Dorothy, "You had the ability to go home all along." But ain't nobody paying attention, right? Ain't nobody paying attention, right? We think no one has come back and told us what it's like to be dead. But that's not true. There have been countless books written on the afterlife and life after death. I've read just about every Sylvia Browne book. I've read books by Michael Newton. Life, what is it called? What is it called? Life in Between Lives or something like that. The book is in my closet. I got it. I can't think of the name of it. I read it years ago. And Michael Newton was a doctor. I've read books by Ruth Montgomery. Have read so many books, Dion Fortune. I've read so many books on the afterlife and just everyone's different concepts. And everyone has a different concept, but it all kind of still boils down to one singular thing. And that is that death should not be feared. But so many people fear death. And that is what nobody is talking about. Everyone is looking for a sensationalized story. And everyone wants to point the finger what someone shouldn't have been doing and this and that. But are you taking if you take the person out of the equation and stop making your spiritual journey and your enlightenment or your journey to re-enlightenment to understand that you were never disenlightened anyway, if people would do that, then they would understand that we do know what death is, but we choose to deny it. We choose to ignore it. We choose to say, oh, well, I don't know if that's true or not. There have been countless cases. There's a doctor named Sam Parnia who was studying near-death experiences. And he even came to the conclusion that there's something there. He didn't say that there was an actual life after death. He can't say that, him being a physician, a practicing physician. I think he's the head of the emergency department somewhere in, I don't know. I don't know if it's in the UK. It might be here. I don't know. Maybe in New York. I don't know. But he definitely recognizes that NDEs, that there's something there. There's something going on. He recognizes that. There have been countless cases where people have come back after near-death experiences. Some of them went to hell. Some of them went to heaven. Some of them went to purgatory. Some of them went to other planets. Some of them went to other universes, and even beyond that. Even beyond that. But we ignore it. And we pay attention to bullshit. And we allow people to manipulate us with the fear of death. We've allowed religion to do it. We've allowed the government to do it. We've allowed these low-level people on YouTube who claim to be, sorcerers and, all of these other things that most of them are not, do it. But really think of it this way. Before you were born, what do you think that was? What was that experience to you before you were born? What do you call that realm there before you were born? That's the quantum realm right there. When you close your eyes, you're tapping into the quantum realm. When you meditate, you're tapping into the quantum realm. You are bringing forth something out of the dark and you're manifesting it into the light. So we do understand and we do know about death. We do understand it. I know there have been a lot of teachings, including Brother Panic, who talked about how to die and not come back. But what I get from that and what I'm getting from him and the energy from him, what I'm getting from that is it's not about, it is about dying and not coming back. But it's more so about, and people didn't, I don't think they really got this. It's more so about understanding that it's your choice to either come back again through reincarnation or to not come back and go on to a higher place. And there is nothing or no one that can influence you. The only thing that can influence you are the lower level archetypes that are attached to your subconscious and your ego, which is all part of you. There is nothing that is going to keep you on a lower level. If you feed, this is why, and I've gone into different, I guess you can say, dimensions or realms. I've gone into them during sleep and meditation. And I've ran into people who were in their own personal hell. I ran into this one woman and she kept begging me to help her. She was a white woman. I don't know who she was. She kept begging me to help her. She was cloaked all in blue. She was like, "Help me. Can you please help me?" She was trapped in her own hell, her own personal hell. My step grandfather, he's trapped in his own personal hell. And that's not because some God or some devil put them there. They put themselves there because they cultivated when they were alive. They did not cultivate enough light or work that would raise their frequency to a higher level of consciousness. So what ended up happening was they're trapped in, like my step grandfather, he's trapped in our family home, which became his personal hell. And the reason that he's trapped in that personal hell is because he cultivated brutality, hate, division, and abuse when he lived that life in that house. And it's the same thing with that woman that I saw. Wherever she was at, she was trapped because she cultivated the lower aspects of herself and of her consciousness. And that is how she slipped down into what you would call a hellish region. And no, she was not on fire. No, there were no demons torturing her. It was all by her own design. And it's the same thing with my grandfather, my step grandfather. It was all by his own design. He did it to himself. He did it to himself. So when I think of experiences that people may have during the process of death, I think that each experience is different. And it's not a think or a thought. Each experience is different for each individual. Everyone is not plugged into the same experience. Now, there may be similarities, but ultimately, everyone has a different experience. For example, I've done a lot of research where it said that kids, when they have near death experiences, they don't children don't experience a lot of times. Some cases it's different. I've read that children, when they have near death experiences, they don't experience a big bright white light. They experience maybe a bridge or a rainbow or a bridge made out of a rainbow or something like that. See, these are the questions that I have as an occultist, as a spiritual scientist. These are the things I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about what somebody did and what somebody didn't do and this and that and booly boo and dooley doo. I don't want to talk about that shit. I want to talk about the real shit that matters. What are you doing to cultivate your consciousness so you won't end up in a lower level place like that? Because I look around YouTube and I look at some of these people who are always talking about the most high and all of this old other bullshit. I look at these people and I feel their energy, and it's very low vibrating. It's very dense. It's very negative. I feel nothing but anger and rage coming from them, hatred. egotistical, egotism, I guess I should say. So for them, the death experience will be possibly not a very, I guess you can say, quote unquote, negative experience. Or it will be a quote unquote negative experience. It will be. Because that is what they cultivate. They cultivate nothing but negativity, just like my step grandfather. The reason that he's stuck in that house in the astral realm is because he abused people in that house. He abused my grandmother. He abused my mother. He abused his own children. And he abused himself. So he's stuck. He's stuck in that astral realm. And he's always calling me to help him. And I'll be like, what the fuck you want me to do? I'm not releasing you. You need to release yourself. For me, the death experience was 1 minute I was in complete, beautiful darkness of nirvana. It was complete, beautiful darkness of nirvana. There was no pain. And nirvana is beyond happiness. It's beyond joy. It's beyond all of those emotions that we cherish here on earth. Nirvana is it's never change. It's not changing. It stays the same. I was in a constant cycle of nirvana. It was complete, perfect blackness, and I had consciousness there. And I was like a purple energy. I was a purple energy because I was at the crown. When I hear dumb niggas talking about the most high is your crown. That's the throne. That's what the most high is. Not some evil entity from the Orion system that you niggas fucking worship called Yahweh, Jehovah, Yaldabaoth, and Allah. No, that's your crown. Some people are made to be sheep, and some people are made to be goats. But for me, the death experience it was absolutely beautiful. Pure darkness, no fear. Then the next thing I know, I woke up and I was a little boy. No, I was a baby getting bathed in the kitchen sink by my great grandmother in Northwest DC on Otis Place back in the late 70s. Shit. That's the next thing I know. So it was almost like 1 minute I was here, the next minute I was not. I mean, meaning 1 minute I was over here in the darkness, the next minute I was here in the earth realm. And that was by my own design, even if I don't recognize it. That's what I wanted to do. Because we are self-created gods and deities. And actually, we're even above that. But that was my experience, and there was no time. It was like within the twinkling of an eye. In a twinkling of an eye, we are here, and in a twinkling of an eye, we can be gone. So if you do believe in that nonsense, only live once, time waits for no one, and all that old bullshit, there is no time. There is no only living once. You just don't recognize it. And even when people do get the signs, even when people do get the information, they still discard it. Oh, it's not true. I just sat here and told you there's countless evidence of an afterlife and life after death, if that's what you want to call it, or rather experiences I'm not going to call it life after death. I'm going to say experiences during the death process, because a lot of the near-death experiences, that's exactly what they are. They are near-death experiences during the process of death to help you get to your next destination, wherever that may be. But whenever these things are presented, people discount it. They try to debate it. They don't want to at least expand their mind enough to say that maybe this is possible. Or if they think it's possible, they will try to put a negative spin on it, like I see a lot of black people do, because black people are very negative when it comes to death, when it comes to spirituality. And it's almost like when black people get into certain spirituality or certain spiritual enlightenment, they take religious concepts or religious energy and they want to attach it to spirituality. And then you wonder why you end up running back to religion. Because, like I said, some of you are made to be sheep, and some of you are made to be goats, and some of us are made to be goats. And the sheep need to stay over there with the sheep and leave the goats alone. People think that goats are dangerous. Sheep are very dangerous people. They are very dangerous people because they're followers and they will do anything to get their point across. They will kill, steal, and destroy. The sheep are the ones that are dangerous, not the goats. The goats don't want to be bothered with nobody. Y'all want to be bothered with us. See, I'm the goat. I'm on the top of the mountain because I've seen the promised land, okay? I'm at the top of the mountain. I don't want nobody bothering me. You all are the ones who want the attention of the goats. That is why you try to harass goats. But then when we pull the world and the universe from up under you, then we're evil, right? I said on my other channel the other day, what I believe hell is not a literal, well, it can be a literal place for some people. Some people have gone to a hellish realm. But on a more metaphysical level, I think that hell can also be lack of knowledge and lack of wisdom and not knowing. And not knowing how to untrap yourself. Not knowing how to get unstuck. I think that that is the true metaphysical concept of hell. Not knowing. So when people fear death, which I can tell by looking at all of these videos that I've been seeing pop up about Brother Panic, a lot of these, I'm talking about the men, a lot of these men, they fear death. A lot of these men fear death. They are afraid. They are afraid to be alone. They are in fear of death. Because all they talk about is what somebody else should have did, and if that person would have did that, then this wouldn't have happened, and this that didn't, all that old nonsense. But is anybody really peeling back the layers from their own perspective, not following anybody else's, not following Panic or anybody else? But have you ever really expounded upon what death really is? And what that really means for you as an individual, not as a collective, but as an individual being. What does death mean for you? And what will the death experience be for you? What will that be for you? See, those are the questions these niggas should be asking themselves instead of worrying about what Panic didn't do right. And I'm not taking up for Panic by any means necessary. But I'm just pointing out your spiritual work and your spiritual journey is yours. And if that means you want to be a sheep, then you be a sheep. But the sheeps need to stop getting in the business of the goats. Sheeps don't know how to mind their business. Sheeps can be dangerous. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to break that down a little bit and talk about death because there's been a lot of death lately, and it doesn't matter how or anything like that. There's been a lot of death. And I know that a lot of us attach archetypes to death, Santa Muerta, I'm sorry, La Santa Sima Muerte, um, the Grim Reaper, Macalad, and all these other names that, Oya is even looked at as a deity of death. Isis, it can be looked at as a deity of death. Barun Samdi. I mean, there are just so many, so many death archetypes. There's so many death archetypes, so many of them. But I'm asking you to put all that aside and just look at the concept of death itself, not the archetype, but the concept of it and what that means for you. And when it's time for you to transition, how you going what you going to do? Because like I said the other day, nobody's going to be here forever. Nobody's going to be here forever. So while people are sitting around, these men are sitting around talking about what somebody else didn't do right and what somebody else shoulda, coulda, woulda did. And I'm only talking about metaphysically. I'm not talking about personally. Personal issues, I get it. Gotcha. No issue with you. But I'm talking about metaphysically. I'm talking about spiritually. They want to drag people into this fear-based process of being afraid of transitioning. And that is one of the things that keeps us as a global community enslaved. And it's not just these low-level archonic human beings doing it, because a lot of these people are possessed by archons. A lot of them are possessed by archons. A lot of them are. And that is why they do the things that they do. If you are a follower of Yahweh, Jehovah, and all of those other deities that cause chaos, division, and confusion, then you are a possessed, archonic person. And the thing is that a lot of times, what really determines, let's just say, your so-called afterlife, once again, is what you have cultivated. And if you have cultivated the lowest aspects of yourself, if you have cultivated that, no matter what books you read, it's not about how many books you read. It's not about what you can regurgitate. Because see, most of the stuff that's coming from me, and I'm not bragging, most of this stuff that's coming from me is not coming from books. It's coming from me. But a lot of times, what really determines your experiences in the death process is what you have cultivated in your lessons here on earth. What have you cultivated? Did you cultivate hating people, harming people, manipulating people? Did you have a heavy heart? Was your heart not light as a feather? Just like that guy that passed away last year, who was a horrible person. He didn't like anybody. He hated everyone. He went to the grave hating his own brother and his own mother. So I can imagine what his experience was like. I can imagine that. I think his name was Dewa. I can imagine what his experience was like. He hated gay people. He hated white people. He hated everyone. And then you expect your experience. So basically, he's a prime example. He cultivated the lowest aspects of his spiritual being. So by him doing that, he cultivated the lowest aspects of the archetypes that govern who he is, which is all inside of him. So 9 times out of 10, he is somewhere either waiting for a rebirth or he is somewhere having an experience in another realm, probably the astral realm, that is not too pleasant. He's probably caught in a loop of regret, guilt, and pain. Because once you go into any spiritual realm, it's not like being over here per se, because you are faced with the brunt of your creations. Whatever you created energetically, you are faced with that when you leave the body. So with him, he hated everyone. He was nasty. He even said when he was dying from cancer, he even said, yeah, I got into it with my brother and I cussed him out, and it is what it is. This man was on his deathbed still carrying all of that hatred in his heart. He was carrying all that hatred in his heart. So someone like that would be like my step grandfather or that white woman that I saw begging me to help her. Because those are very low, heavy emotions. It's not about good or bad. It's about energy and what you cultivate. And I think that is what people should be talking about, since we're talking about everyone's death. But let's have a conversation about the science of death. And let's have an understanding that everything is ultimately up to you. It's up to you. Everything is ultimately up to you. It is no one else's choice. But if you give control over to those lower aspects of yourself, not of anybody else, if you cultivate the lower aspects of you, which is being egotistical, hateful, selfish, greedy, if you cultivate that up until your dying day, then those are the demons that you will encounter when you have your experience when you're transitioning. That's how I see it. Now I know that there are a lot of people who've had near death experiences and they didn't have any experience like that. And that's all well, fine, and good. But I'm simply saying that is how I see it. That is how I see it. And that's my knowing. That is my knowing. And from what I've seen spiritually, that has happened to certain people that I've known in my life. You know? Now some people, the reason you may not hear from them when, they pass away, sometimes that could be because that person either one or two things. They're either in a whole world of their own that we have no access to, and that's okay, or they could have reincarnated, or they could be in an entirely different, universe that has no interaction with this one. That's possible too. Maybe we can't just tap into that quantum frequency, because some people are what you call I remember Sylvia Brown was talking about this. Some people are mission life entities and some people are mystical travelers. Like Jesus Christ would have been considered a mystical traveler. Buddha would have been considered a mystical traveler. And a lot of those people, they go on to higher dimensions that we can't access because we're down here in this dense reality. You feel what I'm saying? And it's up to us to get out of it, you know? But I just wanted to talk about death and just talk about, you know, the different concepts and ideologies of death. I mean, the ancient Egyptians, they wrote the book on death, and how not to come back and all of those things. And I get that. But again, the choice to come back or to not come back, I think that is the key. And that is all up to us. That's not up to anybody else. That's up to us. But that choice is being taken away from us through trickery and illusion, through religion and fear. And stupid motherfucking bitches who ran back to the church because they were in occultism and because they were not a goat, they were a sheep, and they should have stayed in the church in the first place. They should have never been over here with the goats. You shouldn't have never been over here with us in the first place. And that's why it backfired on you. Anyway, I've talked enough. I'm tired of talking, child. This is your host, The Occult View, and that's all I got to say. Later.